In this video, we're going to do a jazz piano trio tutorial. This is going to be a lot of fun because this is the part where you put the piano together with the rhythm section, bass and drums. In the last video, we started a rubato section for Alone Together, the jazz standard. And then at the end of the introduction, the piano player brings in the band, and that's where we're at this point. So what I've done is I've written out an arrangement for how the piano player would comp with the left hand, play the melody along with bass and drums. And there's a few things to watch out for in this video. First, we're going to go through that entire arrangement bar by bar, talk about the comping, talk about why those chords happen, talk about the timing, things like that. And then near the end of that, I'm going to post a link to that sheet music so that you can download it and learn it and practice it. I'll also post a link to the backing track, bass and drums, that I made so that you can practice this arrangement with them. And then after that, I'm going to come back to the piano and play that arrangement along with a couple of choruses of solo so that you know what the final product should sound like when you put it all together. All right, let's work through this arrangement of Alone Together that I did for jazz piano playing with bass and drums. So we're not soloing anymore. In the last video, we talked about how the piano player would play an extended introduction, rubato style, and then bring in the band. And now let's assume the bass and drums are playing. And what do we do as a piano player? And the answer is we play melody, if we're going through the head again, of course, and soloing, but also left hand comping. So if you take a look at the first line, in the bass part is basically that left hand comping. You'll notice it's either 3-note or 4-note chords. They're rootless voicing. So what we're looking for is just to kind of spell the chord, but really get that rhythm happening. So the first chord, and again, we're just going to go through this bar by bar, where we've got a D minor chord here. And again, I'm not playing the root. I've got the 9th and 2 leading tones, the 3rd and the 7th. And I'm just repeating that. So 1. And then here, an E half diminished chord. It's just in root position. I'm just leaving out the 3rd. That's it without the 3rd. This is it with the 3rd. I think it's just as good. And then up to the A7 with a sharp 5. Again, if I play the root, you'll see what the chord is, A7 sharp 5. And then to a D minor chord, D minor 9. Okay, so the rhythm is on the and of 1 here, and then on 3, and of 1, and then 3, and then the and of 4. So this is and of 4, and that chord basically represents the next bar. That's what you do in comping when you're doing swing, is that and of 4 typically represents the chord of the next bar, in this case, D minor. So let's play all of this. We'll get to the next line in a second. What's important here is that you'll notice the left hand keeping that rhythm going, and it's playing typically when the right hand isn't. So sometimes they play together, but a lot of the time the left hand is playing when the right hand is not, kind of filling in that rhythm in the chords. All right, let's scroll down and see that next line. So we're starting with, again, the E half diminished 7th and A7 sharp 5 to D minor 7. Now, it's the same chords as we had at the top. And what you're looking for, especially when you're playing the melody, is consistency. You don't really want to be playing a whole bunch of different rhythms and a whole bunch of different chords. You want to kind of keep the same things going so that it's very pleasing and repetitive to the ear. The more the ear hears it, the better it sounds. Okay, so from the beginning. So the A half diminished 7th chord here, pretty simple over A. You can see it, A half diminished 7th, then D7 flat 9. Now I didn't put a 5th in there, but that's okay. And then this cluster for G minor, basically a G minor add 2 chord. But what you'll notice here is I'm starting this G minor chord, and then on 3, I'm playing it with an F sharp or a G flat, this chord right here. So I've got a line cliche starting there. So I started here, going to here on the next line, and we'll scroll down and see that. So again, this chord is this, then you're going down to the G with a major 7, G minor with a major 7, and then you're going here, it's just G minor 7, and then here, which is basically a C7 chord, but over G. That line cliche is descending in half steps. And you're really looking for things like that to do as a piano player. It gives the ear a lot more interest and gives it things it can grab onto. Descending lines, ascending lines, but basically line cliches. Make a concerted effort when you're playing with a trio to make those types of things happen. So then after we get to the G minor 7th, it goes to the B minor 7. Now we're changing things up a little bit. So what you need to be aware of is it's not always just right hand plays melody and left hand does comping. In this particular case, both hands are doing comping. So the right hand sticks on the E and then plays the chord with the left hand. Two nice chords there. I would encourage you to just copy the chords that I'm doing. Yeah, you can make up your own chords as you get more into it and you get more experience, but for now, just copy them because those chords will keep coming up over and over again, especially all of the 2/5s, like this one. I really like that one there, where you're going from the G minor 7 to the C7. So check this chord out. Over G, it's a G minor 11th chord, right? And then to C7 flat 9, right, over C. And again, I'm not playing bass, I'm just playing rootless voicings. And then when it gets to here, we're gonna have another line cliche going that starts on the E. So this turns into an F7 because you're descending from the E to the E flat. So we're going from here, E to E flat to D to D flat. So from the F chord. So not a lot of rhythm going on there, it's just the and of one and then on the beat. And again, through that, both hands are involved, and that's pretty common when you're playing heads like this. And then two chords leading back to the beginning, the E half diminished 7th, all right, let's play that whole thing, basically the entire A section. Let me scroll out here so I can see it a little bit. It might be a little hard to read, but that's okay. It's just for me as a guide. And we're gonna play it with the rhythm section, just to give you an idea of what it would sound like. All right, let's move on to the bridge, which is just 8 bars, starting on the A half diminished 7th here. And the chords are, so two chords on A half diminished 7th. And of course, this chord, the D7 flat 9, is represented by the and of 4, leading, of course, to that chord. There's our line cliche again, where we're starting on the root and descending in half steps. Nice sound. Now that bar with the G half diminished seventh is exactly the same chords as here, it's just down a whole step. There's our line cliche again. Back to the top. And we'll scroll down and see that next section in just a moment. So I think what you're noticing here is a simplicity of left-hand voicings, but keeping that rhythm going and duplicating wherever you can certain ideas, like the line cliches, like the rhythms, like the types of chords. All right, let's take a look at the last 8 bars. I think the interesting thing about these bars is these chords right here. We'll get into that in a second, but I've switched it up a little bit. I haven't kept the exact same voicings and rhythm leading back to this last A section. You'll notice that this chord is actually on 3. So you see how the interplay of hands keeps that rhythm going. And then this part is the same part that we had in the last video, where you'll notice it says a tempo, which means it was the piano player's job to bring the band in. So play that up to speed so that the band understands, or the bass and drums understand, what the tempo is and they can start to play. But in this particular case, we're just repeating it because this is still the head. We're repeating the head. Even though we did an entire rubato introduction of the head, we're going to play it again with the band. And that's pretty common on the bandstand, to not just play the introduction and then go right into soloing, but to play the introduction and then play the head at tempo and then go into soloing. All right, so it's exactly the same as we had in the last video. The chords are kind of nice. They're block chords, so just D minor and then diminished chords. And then B flat 7, A7 flat 9, or sharp 9, and then to D minor. And then on the end of 2 here, you got this little sort of Oscar Peterson 5th there, and then you start to solo. And the bass player is going to walk down like that, and you're introducing a solo. Now I gave you, 6 notes here as an introduction to a solo. So if we did this, right, the idea is to kind of fill these 2 bars with some type of solo introduction. And I've just written you out an example of something that you could do. Okay, what I'm going to do is post a link to this sheet music up here in the corner. You can go and download that. I think it's a good idea to learn these voicings and learn the rhythms by playing along with the backing track that I'm going to put with that link as well. Now, the backing track is just bass and drums. There's a few choruses, so you can get used to playing with the bass and drums on this particular tune. Now, the bass player is playing in half time, which means he's playing like half notes. Right? He's not walking like this. And I think it's a good idea to use that halftime feel for a little while as you get comfortable with playing with the trio. So the backing track is really good for helping you with your rhythm. And download the sheet music because you can play along with the bass and drums using these ideas. You probably won't find a better example of left-hand comping and right-hand soloing, and a lot of times the hands are playing together. So I encourage you to download it and learn it. So in our next video, we're going to tackle some of the soloing ideas that we have, and we can start playing along with bass and drums, doing left-hand comping, and just finding some great soloing ideas. Okay, thanks for hanging out with me for the entire tutorial. I hope you got some value out of it. I'm now back here at the grand piano. I'm going to put the backing track on and play the head and then a couple of choruses of solo. If you want to hear that entire recording, go click this link up here in the corner.